the campaign was a difficult one. You were been an openly gay candidate in New York City for years now, and you were running against a real homophobic politician who, in that crowded field, had a chance of squeaking out the victory. Was that a significant part of the campaign dynamic?
It was the core dynamic in the campaign. So I was running in the most fiercely contested congressional primary in New York City. There were 12 candidates, including 5 elected officials. And as you pointed out, the frontrunner was a man by the name of Ruben Diaz Sr., who was known to be the most anti-LGBTQ, anti-choice, pro-Trump elected official in New York City. And even though the South Bronx is said to be the most Democratic district in America, there was a real risk that the bluest congressional seat could fall into the hands of a pro-Trump Republican masquerading as a Democrat. And many people said this race could not be won. Ruben Diaz Sr., a larger-than-life political figure, could not be beaten. And we proved the pundits wrong, and we achieved an improbable victory.
How did you do it? Because, as you say, it looked like it was going to go the other way.
We're living in a volatile political moment. This was a change election. I was a change candidate. And throughout the country, voters cast their ballot overwhelmingly for a new generation of leadership that reflects the mosaic of a multiracial democracy. It is gratifying for me because Ruben Diaz Sr. for decades has represented the politics of homophobia. And so the triumph of an openly LGBTQ congressional candidate over a homophobe represented to many long overdue poetic justice.
Tell us about what the coronavirus pandemic has done to the housing projects of New York City, the housing project you grew up in, your mother still lives in that project, and housing projects throughout the country.
Well, there's severe overcrowding of apartments, especially in public housing, and those overcrowded apartments often become petri dishes for the spread of an infectious disease like COVID-19. You know, the South Bronx was struggling even before the outbreak of COVID-19, but the food insecurity, the health disparities, all of these have been taken to a new level. And it's revealed the deeper racial inequalities embedded in American society. And we need a federal government that's committed to addressing the root causes of racially concentrated poverty. The South Bronx is ground zero for racially concentrated poverty, and the federal government needs to address it.
Because you're a city politician, you're very close to the question of schools and kids going back to schools. What can you tell us tonight about New York City's expectation of kids going back to school at the end of August?
It's unclear. There's been no clear guidance on the mayor and how he's going to proceed. The mayor made a comment that students are not going to return fully to public schools until there's a vaccine. I'm in favor of some return to public schools with staggered schedules. I happen to think that face coverings are more effective than people originally thought. So I would advocate for a return to normalcy with proper precautions.
Talk about the disparity between the kids that you represent, many of whom do not have an internet connection so that they can go to school remotely. New York City lost an awful lot of students who had no connection and ability to get wired in to the remote classroom.
Look, I represent students who live in shelters without access to the internet. You know, the policy response to COVID-19 itself revealed disparities. You know, the federal government was sending stimulus checks, but not everyone in my district has access to a bank account. There was talk of telemedicine and remote learning, but not everyone in my district, including those in shelters, have access to the internet. So even the policy response to COVID-19 was deeply unequal and unfair to a district like mine.